Hey, it's your boy Humble Dad. Man, back with another edition of Humble Dad Podcast. This is gonna be a dope show. Got got my men and my women, and we're gonna talk about fatherhood. And we got some really good questions, and I know I got some dope perspectives. Uh, and so hopefully y'all rock with us the entire night. And for the people that's gonna be on playback, hey, you're gonna miss a treat, or maybe not. So here we go. None other than Mr. Trill AC. Tell us about yourself a little bit, Mr. Trill. Who are you?
Uh, my name is Trill AC Anthony, whichever name y'all go by. I'm just just a dad out here that podcast a little bit and do a little bit of counting on the side, man. Just here for a great conversation. Salute to my dog Humble Dad for having me. I'm looking forward to it, man. This shit should be interesting.
That's a bet. Welcome to the stage, Miss Shantae. Who are you?
Hey, Shantae Gidry. I am the proud mother of four beautiful children, three boys and a girl, my one and only princess. But it is truly a pleasure to be here on Humble Dad, especially because you want to get the perspective of a father from a mother, and I think that is phenomenal.
For sure. Welcome to the stage, Mr. Chicago Rilla. Who are you, bro?
All right, man. I'm a custodial engineer. I sweep up here. I pick up trash and cans and recycle plastic bottles. And I'm a professional beta sim host, man.
Here you go with that. Miss Ann, who are you?
Hello, everybody. Shanteri Glenn here, sister in love to Humble Dad. Happy to be on the show again, showing support. And also, as Miss Gidry said, giving a female perspective to fatherhood. So glad to be here.
That's what's up. King Rio, introduce yourself.
What's happening? I'm Mario, dad, photographer, realtor, podcast a little bit with a couple of brothers on this channel, and hoping to have a good conversation.
Absolutely. Miss Ginger.
Hey, I'm new to podcast. This is my very first. I'm a mom of two grown sons and the grandmother of five grandchildren. And about 20 something years, I had 30 kids a year, and now I get to have about 300 a year as an assistant principal. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Y'all got here on short notice, so I really appreciate that. And then my homie who told me I need to be doing this consistently, Mr. Dwayne. Talk to us, bro.
My name is Dwayne Jones. I'm happily married for the last 7 years of my life. It's been a wonderful experience. I have four beautiful children, two girls and two boys, and I am absolutely honored to be here. I think this is a great cause. Great
I think it's
thing.
gonna be a dope conversation. Thank y'all for being here. And of course, I'm Humble Dad. You know, I'm a widower, single father, got four kids, and they rock with me in a major way. 13, 10, 8, and 4. Right? And that's how we get it in. All right, so the first question of the day, right? And it doesn't matter who started on this one. The question is, what is emotional intelligence? What is emotional intelligence? And before you answer, the reason why I asked that question is because people talk about it a lot, but nobody seems to really give a definition. They just say this is something that you need to have. So if it's something that you need to have and you don't have a definition of it, how can you have it or even try to go get it? Right? So what is emotional intelligence?
All right, let me jump in. I think because I think there are all types of buzzwords that comes up in these spaces. I think emotional intelligence, is a cute way to sell a book or books, right? But I think if because I like to break stuff down for the blue collar worker, for the average everyday human being, in particular the average everyday man. And when I think about emotional intelligence, it's just being self-aware. When I think about my stepdad, um, who I call Pops, like he's the one that taught me empathy. He's the one that showed me, um, man, he used to say all the time before, because he was a fan of corporal punishment, right?
Mm.
And before he would administer corporal punishment, he would say, "This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you." That is the only individual that has ever administered corporal punishment to me, and I believe them. Right? Why? Because he made it understood that this was for your correction. This is not me having a bad day at work. This is not me being frustrated with society. This is not me fighting systemic racism and I'm coming to take it out on you. Right? So I think emotional intelligence is just, I think it's empathy. I think it's being self-aware of who you are as a person and also being able to understand the next individual's plight or their circumstance without, like being objective and not subjective. So
That's the bet. Who's next?
Yeah, I would say emotional intelligence is just understanding context. And what I mean by that is, understanding why it is that we do what we do, why it is that we react the way we react. A lot of men we raised to be machine-like. A lot of us don't prioritize emotional intelligence at all. We don't even acknowledge the fact that we are emotional or that we have emotions. The fact is that we do, whether it be anger or whether it be, jealousy or envy or whatever. Like all of these are emotions that men have and we showcase depending on said situation, right? But I think emotional intelligence is having an understanding of them, one, and having an understanding of what triggers them, two. So I would say that on one end, and then the other side of emotional intelligence is again context as well, understanding your partner's emotions and what may trigger what. A lot of times, again, especially speaking from a male perspective, because we can't even identify our own emotions. It's hard for us to connect with our woman from an emotional level, right? So when she steps in and she tripping out or she arguing or she going left over something, a lot of times we'll just tell her, oh, she just being emotional, whatever. But there's no urge or sense of responsibility to understand like where is it coming from and what does it really mean. Like she's not going off for no reason, right? So let's dig into this and understand like what the reasoning for that is, and then that way it'll help us be on the same page. So now going forward, I know, okay, I need to avoid these certain triggers. So when I respond this way, or when I did this, she responded that way. Okay, so if I want to avoid said response, then I need to move another way. But again, it takes emotional intelligence and understanding context to know that and be able to move forward with it. So just in summary, short, sweet, emotional intelligence is context.
That's what's up. Anyone else want to share what they think? What is emotional intelligence? Any of the ladies want to say something?
The gentleman said what I was going to say. It's twofold. It's being aware of our emotions and how they drive us and cause us to react and act. And then it's having empathy and being aware of how our actions and our emotions affect those around us and understanding where they're coming from. And that's the hard thing to do when you're all riled up, but you have to.
Did she get cut off?
Humble Dad, and not to reverse it back on you, but I know you're playing moderator, but what's emotional intelligence for you?
I would say it's like sympathy and empathy, kind of having an understanding of how other people may receive what it is that you're going through or what it is that you're saying. So for me, I would say if I'll take you back, like when I was a youngster, you know what I'm saying? I'm 43, 44 now. When I was a youngster, like in my 20s, like I would say whatever I wanted to say, and I didn't care what other people said or thought, right? But for me, emotional intelligence is, and I could be wrong, and I'm cool with being corrected, is saying what you're saying, but having an idea of how somebody's going to receive it in a way that would be beneficial to both of you, right? So if I'm communicating to you and I'm yelling, like that means that they're not going to really be paying attention to what I'm saying, but or even care about what I'm going through. But if I'm able to communicate effectively of how I feel about something or what I think about something in a way that you can receive it, and knowing your particular, whether it's love language or how you're going to hear it, then I would say that means that you're using emotional intelligence because you're thinking about the other person perspective and how they're going to receive it.
Hey, one last question. I'll pipe down.
Are you the moderator? Really?
No. I don't want to be the moderator. I'm a guest. I recognize that I'm a guest, but I'm intrigued.
Listen, I can send it your way, bro.
I'm just. So, why do you think it's so hard for men to embrace the concept of emotional intelligence?
Well, I think that men have a hard time embracing emotional intelligence. I don't think that it's showcased, right? So, meaning, most men are raised by a single mom, right? So you're a man, and that's going to be another question I'm asking in a minute. But being able to know how a man should respond to a certain situation is different than how a woman is going to respond. And so if a male is learning from a woman how to respond to a situation, then he's not going to be responding in a way that is going to be beneficial to him. Like for me, yes, I was raised by a mom, but I also, what happened for me is like being in corporate America, I can't respond in that way. For example, if I wanted to, there were bosses that I had that did not do, or I feel like they did something wrong, and I went off on them, right? Well, it's going to be received different from a guy than a woman, than how I respond. And so learning that from a male, knowing that you got to be calm and cool in every situation, similar how King responds, how Trill responds, how Dwayne responds, how Cena respond, and you too sometimes really, but sometimes you get in that bag of frustration, right? And you just got to let them have it, right? But being calm and reserved, that's what I would say.
You know, I mean,
you have any more questions? Can you reserve your question? Go ahead, Rio.
I was even going to add, sometimes emotional intelligence isn't necessarily appreciated depending on the scenario. Sometimes we want to listen to the person that we're with when they vent, right? Whether it be a disagreement that happened at work or wherever it was at. And sometimes that's when you realize they really just want you to listen, because when you start to actively listen and ask questions and use your emotional intelligence, you start to say, well, okay, well, what did they say? Well, how did they feel? You know what I mean? Or how do you think they reacted to how you said or did X, Y, and Z? And a person may think, wow, whose side are you on? You know what I mean? You trying to consider their feelings. What about mine? I'm just trying to maybe better help understand what took place outside of your emotions, because we know you're self-aware, but are you aware of what's going on around you and how other people may feel as a result of your actions too? You know what I mean? So I think a socially, emotionally intelligent person can add, to that understanding, but whether or not it's received really depends on the person.
Right. And to just kind of counter off what Rio was saying, if I'm trying to vent, and you're just listening to me, I may respond in a manner in which, well, why aren't you saying anything? And all you're trying to do is listen. But at the same time, you do want that feedback. But if you're standoffish to it, I mean, what is the feedback for?
It sounds like just having a level of maturity in how you handle yourself, whether that be in relationships and conversation. You need to have a level of maturity about yourself and then the person that you're communicating with. One thing that I was thinking about when you guys were talking was something that I learned as an educator when I teach behavior trainings, and that is behavior influences behavior. So understanding that how you behave will also influence the behavior of others. So I think emotional intelligence has a lot to do with that as well.
I agree. And that's why I think it's so important, man. Like, especially for men, like more times than not, we learn our emotional intelligence when we run into a great woman, right? Because she actually is patient enough to teach us and like show us what that is. Or say, you know what I'm saying, compared if you just dating a woman that's just there for whatever, y'all not even connecting like that. But if you got a great woman, she's going to stress the importance of you being emotionally intelligent, and she's going to hold you accountable for it. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's in those moments to where we learn it. Oftentimes we got to lose a great woman to learn it, but that's another conversation for another day. But I'm saying running into a great woman, like I said, is going to hold your feet to the fire and like show you what it is. When I mean emotional intelligence, this is what I mean, or when I'm responding this way is because you did this, and blah, blah, blah. Like literally break it down, put it in simplified terms for us. And then once we leave that relationship, or if the relationship goes to distance, but hypothetically we leave it, we'll be way better off than we was before we came in it, because she showed us what it was. That's typically how men learn it.
Hey, but Trill, I want to it's funny because in the pre-show I was saying I was wrapping up a conversation with my sister, right? And I had to apologize to my sister because I don't want the young cats or whoever's watching this, maybe watching on the replay, right? I don't want them to think that it's got to come through relationships. I literally was having a conversation with my sister and I was insensitive to something that she was dealing with. Now, here I am thinking as, big bro, man, I got to tell you, whoop, 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 blah, 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 right? She said, bro, you didn't hear me. I thought she was doing one thing and she was actually doing something else. She said, yo, I had told you that, but you was listening to react and not listening to understand. And emotional intelligence, part of emotional intelligence is listening to understand before you react or even respond, right? So it don't always, I'm just saying, to add on to what you're saying, bro, it don't always have to come through in the sense of relationships. For those of us who have, women in our family, or we're still blessed to have, women surrounding us in our families or whatever, sometimes it's right there in our face. I'm saying as men, I'm just speaking to men. It's right there and we don't see it. And I genuinely had to apologize to my sister and say, yo, I definitely got to do a better job with listening to understand versus listening to respond. No, listening to react is what I told her.
Why too? It's because like we don't even look at our sisters like women until it's time to protect them. You know what I'm saying? Like we look at our sisters like the homie, the homeboy. You know what I'm saying? So we handle them the same way that we would handle. You know what I'm saying? With the same way that we would handle our homeboys. And I'm sure every man on this panel can speak to the fact that we ain't nowhere near emotionally intelligent with our homeboys as we should be. You know what I'm saying? So if we looking at our sisters through that lens, we'll never pick up that game that's right there in front of us that you're talking about. So I, just to give context as to why. Like we don't even look at our sisters like women until it's time to protect them, bro. And that gotta change.
And Tro, that's absolutely right. I'm the oldest of 4 children, and I have one brother. He's my baby brother, and I'm his sister, straight like that. I'm his sister, and until it's time for him to protect me, then like you said, that's just my sister. But at the same time, I will get on my brother as a woman to a grown man, and he still be receptive of that. And that's why it should go both ways.
Yeah, I think one of the things about family is I think that sometimes they have a little bit more grace than people that we go out and meet in the world. You know what I mean? So, really your sister, she gives you another chance. You know what I mean? And she explains to you what's taking place because she realizes that you don't understand, right? And now you do understand because she's explained it. And if it was somebody that we were to just go out and meet in the world, or somebody we were in the early dating stages with, they may just decide, I can't talk to this person. They don't listen. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing. I think that's a beautiful thing about being a parent too, because it just seems like our kids give us another chance every day. You know what I mean? Like they give us another chance to get it right every day. You know what I mean? They're some of the most loving and forgiving people in the world, probably the most loving and forgiving people that you're going to meet, your own children. You know what I mean? So just being conscious of that is definitely motivation to try to be more emotionally intelligent.
That's good. Dwayne, what you got on it?
So there was a book I was reading that it talked about mind like water. And the concept of it, or the philosophy of it, is having your mind at rest, having your mind at peace. And a lot of what y'all all spoke about was the internal peace that you have where you are aware, self-aware. So as for mind like water, you are at rest. Your mind is at rest. If something happens, you don't underreact or overreact. So if you throw a pebble into the water, you'll act accordingly. If you throw a boulder into that water, it will then act accordingly, but it doesn't overreact. The pebble doesn't react like it's a boulder. The boulder doesn't react like it's a pebble once it interacts with that water. So as that inner piece, and a lot of it is how you react to certain situations that will then determine the outcome. And just like said earlier, it will then look back on you based upon how you react. So if you overreact, there's people looking at how you react to those. And I'll even say this, some people will glorify your overreaction to situations because they will win. And that's what they look for, to be able to get you to, hey, caught you slipping. And they will test your nerves in that regard. So if you're not emotionally aware, internally aware, then you have people out there looking for your demise in that area.
Phenomenal take, bro. Phenomenal take. Shay, what you got?
I was just going to say, when I think of emotional intelligence, it is an awareness of feelings in general and the different types of feelings, right? Like excitement is a feeling, joy is a feeling, and then being able to, what most people have already said, listen and respond in a way that is supportive of the person that you're talking to. So being able to apply that, pairing that feeling with the cognitive response, I think if you pair them together, then you can present something that is supportive for both people involved. So
Thank you for that. I think that y'all was saying a lot of things that are not necessarily talked about, but I really like your perspective. And so it kind of transitions into like the question about how have you seen, or how could a father provide emotional intelligence or teach emotional intelligence to their children? I'll give you that teacher think time. You know about that, Shane, right? That think time. But if you have an answer,
I would like to step in on that. And yes, I do know about that teacher think time.
Yeah.
I also have 4 children, and I don't think that I necessarily gather emotional intelligence about myself, honestly, until I was going through a divorce. Like whatever popped in my head, whatever emotion I was feeling, we just went with it. And it was okay. I was okay with it. It didn't matter if my partner was okay with it. I was okay with it. But one thing that that my ex-husband does really well with my children in particular, he has a feelings wheel, and they talk about how they're feeling using the feelings wheel. And then he has the children to, yes, it's like a wheel of feelings, and it's not just happy, sad, mad. There are anxious. I'm feeling things like, anxious is the one I can come up with. So there's feelings on this little wheel, and you can find them all over the internet. And whenever there are topics of discussion that he has with the children, he uses this feeling wheel, and he has them to elaborate specifically on what they are going through, why they feel this way. And I think it's a wonderful tool for men or dads that they could use to help with teaching emotional intelligence with their children. Also, we have one son together, and allowing him to cry if he needs that. Growing up, it was like men don't do that. Why not? We all have feelings. Like if I get hurt, it may be expressed in crying. So not telling my son that this is not a male thing, you should hold that in, is another big thing that I think dads should do in helping to develop, especially in their boys, emotional intelligence. It doesn't mean he gets to cry about everything, but if something truly has hurt him, allow him that process of getting it out, and then help him to explain exactly why it is that he felt that way. Why did you feel the need to cry? What's going on? Express to me what's happening in your head that I don't see. So
I just got one question to that, because I agree with everything you said, but in terms of like, okay, I don't want him crying about everything. How do you put those boundaries in there as to what's to cry about and what's not.
With my son in particular, it just depends on, the context of what's happening. So if his sister hurt his feelings, I don't want you coming bawling at me. I need you to stop so that you can explain why this is happening. Why are you doing this? In this situation, it's better for you to come and talk to me about what's happening than coming and bawling. I can't help you when you're unintelligible. I don't understand what's going on. So I need you to stop, catch your breath. It's not the crying in this moment is not going to help. So walk me through what's going on and why you feel this emotion. And it's just taken on a case by case basis. Why I think my son shouldn't cry about certain situations is going to be different for every person. So I think that judgment has to be made on a case by case basis. And then depending on how your upbringing is and what you feel they shouldn't have to cry about.
And I think it's the processing after that, right? It's like, what happens after the cry? So I teach my son this. Like, I tell everybody, I don't care about anything as long as my son is an emotionally healthy boy. Like, that's my main objective in parenting. Like, I tell everybody that, right? So when he comes to me and he's like crying after a basketball game because they lost, right? And he's teary-eyed, right? I'm like, okay, I help him to process that emotion to help him identify, is this something you should really be crying about? Like, well, and I'll ask questions like, were you in the gym? Were you doing what you were supposed to do? Like, did you give a good effort to give him some basis on how to judge it or evaluate the reason for him crying? And if he's like, well, no, I didn't. Well, then that's the result. What you put in is what you receive. But if it was like, yeah, I gave a good effort, I was really working hard, and I just blew the last shot, then I'm like, okay, I can understand that. So that's a lot of pressure. So I think it's like helping them process those emotions to help them identify if it's something that they should cry about, because when the situation comes again, they'll be able to evaluate it on that same type of tool basis or whatever.
What was you about to say, Trill?
Nah, I was gonna say that that was a hell of an answer. Because again, I think especially we get taught in extremes in terms of like when we should express emotions, when we should cry, and just like you said, as young boys, it's get up, walk that off. What are you doing? What are you crying for? Men don't do that. Men don't move that way. That's little girl stuff. You know what I'm saying? So we like getting that tutelage, and it's with us all the way from a kid all the way to an adult. And more importantly, in terms of what Humble Dad asked, in terms like as a father, how do you get that message across? I think more important than anything is showcasing it yourself. Because I think growing up, I can count on two fingers how many times I seen my daddy cry, and I'm 32. So along with us getting that tutelage, you a man, men don't cry, get your ass up, walk that off, and get on back to what you was doing. You also look at your dad and you like, well, damn, he never cries, or he never feels nothing. So, okay, well, this is what I need to aspire for, especially if he's in the, he in the house every day. This is my example. This is what I'm seeing. So I'm going to emulate that. And a lot of times we'll emulate that to our own detriment when we get into a relationship. Now, growing up, wherever we growing up, a lot of us come from, rough places or whatever the case may be. That lack of emotion aids us in getting through that, right? But when it comes to like progressive things, like a relationship, like a job and communicating with people on the workforce and different things like that, like you begin to like see, okay, just being a emotionless machine, it's not gonna get me far in this. That might have got me far in my neighborhood because it got me my stripes and got me my respect. Or when I was playing football or sports or whatever, you don't show no weakness in front of enemies and this, that, and the third. So it got me through sports. It got me through all of that. But when I get to that relationship, it's working on my detriment because my woman wants me to communicate. And not only does she want me to communicate, the success of this relationship depends on my ability to communicate, as far as emotions and, just whatever I'm going through at the time, So I think that it's important to like not only express to your kids that it's okay to like feel emotions, but show them that, I go through emotions as well. I come home some days, my daughter be like, "Daddy, what's wrong?" And I break it down to her like she a grown person. Look, baby, I had a long day at the job. I'm tired. She's 3 years old, mind you. I had a long day at the job. I'm tired. I just need to sit down for a minute. I just need to relax. I'm just going through a lot, right? Compared to when we growing up, we don't get that. You know what I'm saying? Your daddy come to that house, he tired. Hey, not right now. He just gonna do what he do. And as a kid, you just kind of take that. You eat that. And then, again, like I said, not seeing them cry until somebody dies or something drastic happens like that, and it's like, okay, that's what I should aspire to. So I think we got to show them that we are capable of expressing emotion as well.
And it's okay to be vulnerable in those situations. It's okay to show that vulnerability to your kids, because there's been times where I know my son will come to me and be like, "Mom, I know Dad was upset because he cried." And then I was like, "Well, how do you think that? How do you feel about that?" And then he would, elaborate more on the situation. But that form of vulnerability is always, I think, it's more so appreciated by kids, because they can see, hey, parents are human too. They do have emotions. They do have feelings.
What you gonna say, Rilla?
Let me be very careful because I'm a man of a certain age. Trill, I'm proud of you for expressing that, because you're a very stoic individual on these platforms. And I've heard you talk about. I think I've heard you talk about your granddad more than I've heard you talk about your pops. And so I would assume your granddad had the influence on more than he, just from what I know about you on this platform. For me, let me say this first. My stepdad, right, who I honor, adore, that's my pops. Michael McNulty is the GOAT, period. And I specifically remember, and I do this to this day, right? So my stepdad, one day he was leaving out of the house. He kissed my mom's, he kissed both of my sisters, and I must have been like all of maybe 7, 8, maybe 9 years old. Maybe I was looking at him oofy goofy, but he said, "What, you want a kiss too?" And I don't remember looking at him like I was wanting from him. But what he did was, I didn't even answer. He just leaned in, kissed me on the cheek. And I remember, because his beard, he had a scruffy, really brittle beard, and he kissed me on my cheek. And in that moment, I remember feeling a type of validation, because my stepdad, who loved me like I was his blood son, kissed me on the cheek. To this day, I kiss my sons. When we was in Atlanta, Trail, Humble Dad, and I visited with my son, I said, "Hey, give me a kiss." He didn't hesitate. He reached in, leaned in for a kiss. Right?
How old is he now?
Oh, he's 18. I don't play about my kids, man. Ain't no funny business. Ain't no fun boy, rainbow coat. Shout out to Alphabet. I'm not saying that to be funny, but I'm saying, like, I don't play about my seeds. My sons need to know that they dad love and appreciate them. It's one of the ways that we do that. However, I do think there is balance, because I do firmly believe, I literally, man, look, at 48, I'm finally able to sit at the table with my uncles, right? My uncles are in town. I told you this earlier, Humble Dad. My uncles are in town for my grandma. My grandma turns 83 tomorrow. We turning up, we celebrating her, and my uncles are in town, and I'm finally at the big boy table, and I get to hear all the stories. I get to hear all the stories about, to your point, men don't cry. I get to hear the story about my oldest uncle, never cried when he got whooped. This, then, the third, whoop-de-woo, right? And the thing to me is, because what we were talking about last night, me and my uncles, I honestly believe men are made. Men are made, man. You got to go through some things. Hey, man, you gonna suffer, boy. You gonna suffer. And so I do think there is a balance. At the same time, I appreciate my step pops. I appreciate my granddad. I appreciate the lessons that I got from my grandma. I appreciate my uncles because they definitely have taught me a lot. There's a balance in between all of that, and what I would caution, because I do think some people may watch this on the replay, and some young bloods in particular, and my message is always, no disrespect to the ladies, but it's always to the young men, because I expect you ladies to talk to the ladies, right? But I'm talking to the young bloods, man. What I would say for you mothers, just be careful, because there's a fine line between raising them to be young men, transparent, vulnerable, all that, and then raising them to be young women based on what you need. Literally, just in the pre-show, I was telling Humble Dad, I'm wrapping up a conversation with my sister. That was part of our conversation, Humble Dad, because my nephew just lost his daddy. And I'm sitting up there trying to warn her and caution her. You cannot, I said, I got to get more involved. He may need to come up here and spend more time with me. Why? Because you can't raise, at this point, he's 16. My nephew is. You can't turn him into you based on what you think he needs. You don't know what he needs because you're not a man. You're not. I'm sorry. This is why I advocate when boys turn a certain age, if the household is broken, ladies, y'all might need to send that young blood with his daddy. No, actually, not Mike. Y'all need to send the young blood with his daddy.
Bro, you getting ahead of everybody.
I'm sorry. I'm piping down.
Man, it's not, you act like you ain't read the caption and nothing. Come on, really? Dwayne, Rio, what you got?
Man, I kind of, you know what? Look, I take my hat off to really, because I think I'm one of those people that's the result of not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, my thought process with my son is like, I need to protect you and prepare you for the world. And I think that may be a lot to do with just my experience. You know what I mean? I don't feel like the world has any sympathy for Black men. You know what I mean? I feel like we got to be tough. You know what I mean? I feel like that we have to be careful not to be vulnerable in the wrong situations or show too much weakness, even in our own communities. So I feel like me protecting him is me preparing him, you know what I mean, for what the world is going to throw at him and how he needs to carry himself so that he won't be seen as weak and so that he won't be vulnerable. And I will say I also was kind of groomed that way too. You know what I mean? I don't, me and my dad are not like affectionate, you know what I mean? Like in that kind of way. Me and my mom, I think with me being the oldest sibling, I think she also kind of made me tough. You know what I mean? We don't like, we're not affectionate like that. You know what I mean? So a lot of these things I had to learn to do with my kids. And so it's hard, and you don't want to miss those opportunities. My youngest sibling is 14 years younger than me. And I remember when she was little, she would run up to me. I'd come in the door every time. She'd be super excited, run up to give me a hug. And I could not show the level of emotion and energy to match hers. And I regret that to this day. Now that I'm more emotionally intelligent, that I'm growing and I'm realizing that these things aren't normal just from being out in the world as a grown man and dating women, you know what I mean? And then having kids of my own. So it's like that balance between wanting to protect and prepare your son, but also making sure that he's not flawed in the same ways as you. So it's work in progress.
What's a situation where you would see a guy being too vulnerable?
Well, I mean, for me, all right, I'll give you some examples for me. So even when sometimes it's even with our women, I'm gonna just tell you the truth. I get accused of not being emotionally available enough, right? But then if the right button gets pressed and I get, turned up in an argument, then I might be being accused of being emotional. When you tell me that, I immediately peel back. I'm not emotional. You know what I'm saying? And so when you tell me that just because I raised my voice in a situation, you think I'm gonna cry on your shoulder? You know what I mean? There are people in my life who've never seen shed tears. You know what I mean? And so like that's the thing. And so like you have to, I think people like me almost have to be with very emotionally intelligent people, because or else you're not going to be able to really peel back enough layers to get that out of me. You know what I mean? Because as soon as I feel like I have to guard or protect myself in any situation, I'm gonna tighten up. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how that is. So you know, when I see brothers, you know, crying to their women and different things like that, I think they're vulnerable. Because the moment she changes her mind, she wants to use that against you, you're wide open. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, it's probably not the right way to think, but I'm just being transparent.
Hey, but Rio, if I'm not mistaken, one thing I know about you is, and you're not self-professed, but you are creative.
Yeah.
Do you feel like not being vulnerable or as you stated, do you feel like the restrictions on your vulnerability, do you feel like that's counterintuitive? Because a lot of what I know about a lot of y'all creatives, and Kanye is, you know, people label him however they label him, but he is a definite case study that I'm used to dealing with y'all creative niggas.
Yeah. It is.
Y'all different breed, man.
It is. And you want to know what's crazy is I protect my work from people who've known me for too long, because I don't want their judgment or impression on that part of my world. I just want people who don't know me at all to come view and give me a reaction and impression with no bias, with no background on me personally. You know what I mean? And that gets in the way of me really thriving in the social media world, because I don't share it with everybody.
No, I could resonate with what you said, Rio, because my son, with my ex-husband, he's from Chicago. So my son goes to Chicago every chance he gets, every break. He's there right now with his dad. And so he has very extended breaks. In the way Chicago environment is, and being in Texas is two totally different environments. So he's this super cool kid because he has that exposure. But his dad, because his father was a revolutionary and he was, you know, we have two totally different perspectives, right? And so I can see how my son is influenced by his father a lot when it comes to the emotions, which is why I am adamant about him being emotionally intelligent, not vulnerable, not who I want him to be, but emotionally intelligent about his own emotions and what that looks like, and how many emotions he may go through from now until adulthood, so he can be clear in how he's feeling and being able to communicate that. Like, I'm very adamant about that because I can tell, you know, just him going to Chicago and when he's in Texas, he's two totally different kids during that time.
How old is he?
He's 10.
He's 10. And what part of Chicago is he in?
He's on the west side.
Oh, go carry on.
And Shay, I was going to ask you, do you think what you're instilling in him now, do you think he's carrying that over, even though he may be in two different places? Do you think, because like I have a 13-year-old and a 19-year-old, and yeah, we can try to instill in them, but at school, do we think they're using it?
Yeah, that's the feedback that I do get from his teachers or people that's around him. Like, they can tell, like, the academics part, he's not interested, but this life stuff, some reason he's 10, he has it figured out, right? Like,
can I share something with you ladies?
Go ahead.
When you're dealing with young men, we are the legacy of our fathers.
Mm-hmm.
So, ladies, I understand it. I get it. Humble Dad, I'm not trying to moderate, sir. I promise you I'm not.
It's funny that you seem to feel that way. I didn't even say anything, but
yeah, but I know you.
Like, it really just sounds like conviction.
And I'm genuinely intrigued, but I think for the broader audience, if you grant me grace, for the broader audience, I think this conversation is important because, listen, I'm talking with my uncle who knew my dad better than I knew him, right? Mm-hmm. And he was telling me stuff about my dad, and I'm like, yep, that's why I went to Atlanta and acted that way, right? I'm my daddy's son, 1000% that. And I think because you all birthed us, we do come through your birth canal. But as men, I'm just saying, honestly, gentlemen, please, don't let me drown out here. But we are daddy's son.
We waiting on you to finish talking so we can.
Yeah. We are the sons of our fathers, and we carry that legacy. We bear his name.
And he actually bears his father's name. So I do get that. But I do think what he's been taught shows up, because even this week, when he was like, hey, Mom, I watched a movie today. I was like, oh, that's cool. He was like, yeah. I said, because you normally wouldn't be watching movies. You'll be changing the channels. He was like, yeah, that's because I watched those 60-minute TikTok videos, 60-second TikTok videos. So it's always changing my attention. Like him just being that aware of himself. And that's not his father's doing, but he's going to carry his father's legacy anyway because he has his father's name, right? But I do think that although he has the mom early on, we get to put in whatever we want to put in that we want solid. When he gets to middle school, his dad can take on the rest or whatever, and he can teach him the remainder. I don't think one goes without the other, because that's why it's a woman and a man. Like, it just is, right? So, and you notice in dating, if a man doesn't have a good relationship with his mother, us women, we can tell. So we can't say he's the legacy of his father, because if he doesn't have a good relationship with his mom, we know. Like, it clearly shows and it's evident.
So, Dwayne, get in here, bro. What you got on it?
No, that's interesting. I think for me, going back to emotional intelligence, I think I became significantly emotionally intelligent after having kids, because I would consider myself rough around the edges, so very rough around the edges if you ask some people. But it's interesting. My mom, I was raised by a single mom, and my dad, he was in my life, but I was predominantly raised by my mom. And what I noticed was my mom was a strong woman, and she talked about how her mom was a strong woman as well. And I realized there's so many things, and I call them deficiencies. I see many deficiencies in myself. I see many deficiencies, I'll say even in my mom, because she didn't have a dad. And then I look at my dad, and my dad lost his father when he was 10 years old. And I could see so many deficiencies in that area because he lost his dad. And now look, and again, as I go into parenting or into fatherhood, I see many deficiencies in myself as well. So even as for emotional intelligence, my wife would be like, hey, you can't say that. Hey, you can't do that. And I'm like, but it's got to be like this, that, and the other. It's like, no, you just, and I think as for, I could feel my way that I want to feel about it, but I have to go back and I have to think, why is this being said? So as for people speaking into your situation, whenever there is a situation, I think your partner is one of the ones who are able to speak into that situation the most. And as for with my wife, she has a different she's wired emotionally different than I am, wired. So some of the things that make sense to her does not make sense to me. And if I desire to make the relationship the best that it can be, I have to be able to be tuned into that frequency. So if my frequency is all the way over here, I got to be able to tune it in order to become on that same frequency where we're not causing harm. Because I see a lot of that based upon deficiencies. And as for listening and seeking understanding with your partner, with your kids, again, with my oldest being 16 and my youngest being 3, there's the gap is a nice gap, and I have to tune into the emotional needs of my 16-year-old girl, and then I have to tune into the emotional needs of my 3-year-old son, and then in between. And it's a very significant thing if I miss the mark, because if I downplay certain things, like, hey, you don't need to be feeling like that. My wife says I invalidate their emotions and feelings, and I know how I feel whenever that happens. And so I have to be more emotional. As it stands today, I'm lacking in that area where there's so much room for improvement. So as with my kids, having them, being married with my wife it's a challenging experience. But just like going to the gym, the more you exercise, the more you work out, the healthier you'll be, the stronger you'll be.
That's what's up, man. For me, I would say, in losing my late wife Jen, this is when I saw that my kids had emotional intelligence. I didn't know prior to that this is what they were learning, from me or from Jen, right? And so, what happened for me was, like, they had never seen me cry other than Father's Day, right? They had never seen me cry, and I was excited about Father's Day because I had got this gift that I hadn't got before or whatever, and that was the first time that they saw me cry. That was like last year, Father's Day, right? Then when their mom passes and they see me crying all the time, like they would literally make sure that I was okay. Like, my oldest daughter, she'd either come hug me, she'll ask me, am I okay? My sons, they were different. Like, they would just sit in the room and just in that moment, they wouldn't say anything. They would just sit there and allow me that time. Even my 4-year-old, she would come and hold me, like hold my hand or rub me on my shoulder, right, in that point in time. And then when I'm excited, all right, man, the room is different. When I'm excited, like, they carry that. Like, there are times when I say, hey, you can't go to bed until we have this dance party, right? And we just start and we can't dance, and that's okay, right? I'm a decent dancer, right? That's what Kendra gonna show us how to do a couple moves for sure. And so, but what I'm saying is, on the scale of when I'm really down and out, they recognize it. And then even when I'm doing really, really good and I'm at my highs, they are right there with me and making sure that that I'm okay in any regard. So the emotional intelligence, I think, how I've been able to teach it to them is what y'all have all said, which is to show it, like being able to cry. Because when I I have never been a crier, and I said, and I was talking to my kids, and I was like, well, if I wasn't crying, like, what would y'all think? And they would say, well, I would think that you didn't love our mom, right? But I'm not a crier, right? And so in their mind, it helped them recognize that I had emotions, not just an excited emotion, right? Because I can get amped up, and Shan know that more than anybody on the panel for sure, right? And so, and so that kind of leads to the next topic, and I'm gonna get Shantae to kind of start this one off for us. How can a father exhibit open lines of communication? How can fathers exhibit open lines of communication? If I need to break it down even more, somebody already said that dads will come in the house and they won't even necessarily talk to the kid. They'll just come in and say, "Hey, I got to do what I got to do." But I'm looking to see, what does that look like to you when you see a father exhibiting open lines of communication?
I think that's a very good topic, because I know from experience, some of y'all, you said you have stepfathers. Where I grew up with a stepfather, and he was present, but he wasn't present, if that makes sense. Because sometimes you have those present but absent fathers. And I think the open line of communication, it has to start with, they have to know how to communicate first. It's not always the child that has to say something to the adult. I mean, yes, we've been taught that, adult walks in the room, you are to speak as the child. But at the same time, it also goes to the point where, hey, you're the adult. You're the, you come in, say hi to your kids, kiss your kid on the forehead. Hey, how was your day? That's a simple conversation starter. How was your day? What'd you do at school today? Is there anything you want to talk about? And then allow the child to go deeper if necessary.
Hold on, could you repeat the question one more time, bro?
Yes, for sure. Let me get to my notes. The question is, how can fathers exhibit open lines of communication with their kids? How can fathers exhibit or show open lines of communication? Or when have you seen it? How would you execute it?
I think, one thing is just learning how to listen without trying to solve the issue. I think that right there would be the main thing. I know growing up in the house with my dad is very solution oriented. And again, he's kind of, I don't want to say cold in a sense, because he has like a funny, hilarious side to him. But in terms of expressing emotion, he's very cold in that way. Like I said, I'm 32. I've seen him cry twice, and that was when my grandpa died, and I think when his cousin died. So that was 2 times in 32 years. But I think, men make the mistake of, because of how we're wired, we want to fix things. We want to provide solutions. And that goes to even in our relationships. When our woman comes home, she had a rough day. She, oh, baby, this happened. And the whole time she's talking, in our head, we thinking, okay, well, she did this thing. We can fix that. Okay, well, that look, okay, well, let me give her this so she can fix that. That's how we analyzing it. It's just completely right to the solution. So when she get done talking, we damn near don't even acknowledge what she said before going into the plan. Well, okay, baby, you say you having this. Okay, I think you should do this. I think this right here solve that. This right here fix that. This side, okay, this will solve that. This will fix that. We do the same thing with our kids. So my kids come in and say, Daddy, I had it was a rough day. I was sad. Like my 3-year-old says that sometimes. Today was sad. And again, at first I went right in the solution mode, right in the plan mode, and then I thought about it. I said, wait a minute, let me catch myself. That's not the right way that that I'm gonna get, I guess, the most communication out of it in terms of emotion. So let me just let her talk. And as she's talking, I'm asking open-ended questions, not yes or no questions. You know what I'm saying? Open-ended questions so she can really and again, she's 3, but she's very she's very advanced. So even when she's struggling to say something, she'll start talking and she'll stop, she'll look up and to the right, and then she'll come back and say it the way that she means to say it. You know what I'm saying? So I think just giving them that line of just, hey, this is a safe space. This is a free zone. I'm not going to judge you. You're not going to get in trouble. Just tell me what happened. I'd much rather you tell me what happened, and then we can try to work on it, compared to you feeling like, ooh, I don't want to say the wrong thing because then he may lecture me, or he may whoop me, or he may, whatever the case may be. So I think as a man, we got to be careful and understand the fact that we can't solve everything. We can give advice, but we can't solve everything, especially in terms of kids, because you can lace your kids with all the game in the world, or a textbook guideline blueprint on how to navigate certain situations. But when they leave that house, they're gonna do what they want to do.
Right.
That's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? And I know because I was a kid and I did the exact same thing. But all you can do as a parent is just kind of hope that the jewels you gave them pops back into their head at the right time, to where as least damage as possible was done in the process of them learning. So, again, not to go on a tangent, but to answer the question, I would again just stop trying to solve everything and just let them talk and ask open-ended questions and actively listen. That's how you do it.
I think, Trill, to your point, also, I think one of the things you said with scripture quotes, train up a child in a way that they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. And the thing I think we miss as parents, and maybe our parents have missed with quoting that scripture, is that we're supposed to follow script all the time, and we don't. If you plant it, Paul said, I watered, or I planted, Apollo watered, God gave the increase. Same principle applies, right? I think the biggest thing for me, what I've learned, and to be honest, I didn't learn really until I was older, is being that safe space for them. You're right. Being that safe space. You can come, you can talk. Now, we're going to have boundaries, right? You can't cuss, right? Like, you ain't finna cuss. We ain't finna be disrespectful. I'm still going to set boundaries, but you can come and we can have an open, honest conversation about whatever is on your heart. Right? I gotta be that safe space, because my situation, And again, I like to tie this back into the, because I don't have just, I don't have, my seeds are not just with one woman, right? So I have to balance the fact that, oh, my seed over here with their mom, and their mom is this, and I know their mom, so I got to balance that, right? And then, so I have to be a safe landing space at the time, but also still have to be assertive, still have to be dad, still, and it's not perfect, man. It's not perfect, right? But I think to facilitate that, you do have to be like more listening to understand and making sure your kids are comfortable with talking to you. Because I didn't always feel like I definitely, well, I didn't grow up with my dad. My stepdad, yeah, I could go talk to him about some things. My uncles, my granddad, I never felt comfortable talking to him about anything. My uncles, I could some things I could not. So what ends up happening in that situation as a young black man growing up on the south side of Chicago? You go to your homeboys. Well, guess what? They telling you based on what they know. You can't, like Trill, you can't talk to them about sex. They watching Spectrum and Cinemax and on TV the same way you watching it with the wiggly lines. They watching prawn. They watching it the same way you watching it. Y'all all teaching each other. Everybody in 8th grade was no longer a virgin. I know in today's time that happens. In my day, are you kidding me? Like all y'all in 8th grade, bro, all y'all didn't hit it. All y'all. Come on, man. Right? So
Pure cap.
In 8th grade. In my day, I'm saying specifically.
So, it's still happening.
No. What I'm saying is, no, I know these shorties now, they getting to it.
6th grade. Okay.
Right. What I'm saying is, I'm 48. 8th grade for me in what, 1988? Nah. All the dudes that was saying they done knocked this one down and that one down, they had not. So anyway, my point being though, is that for my kids, I have to make sure that they feel comfortable. Like even last night, I went to see Alex Isley in concert, right? And I told my daughter I was supposed to go with my boo thing, but things happened and whatever happened, right? So she couldn't come. Told my daughter, come in this concert with me. And her being the daughter that she is, she said, does this date include food? Right? Why? Because she's used to me taking her on dates. Number one. Number two, when we go on these dates, we talk. So I have to be the safe landing space for them to be able to have that conversation with me, to say whatever it is with no judgment. Now, I'm gonna be objective with a little bit of bias and subjectivity, but I try and be as objective as possible. So that's I just wanted to say, like, I just wanted to chime in really on what Trill was saying. Like, you spot on, bro. But we gotta be, as fathers, we gotta be that safe landing space. And so I know you're dealing with a 3-year-old. I'm dealing with a young lady that is, my daughters are much older, right? And they dealing with grown adult stuff now, right? So I have to be able to be that safe space for them so that they don't have to run and get it from this person or Becky, or they don't have to run the Love and Hip Hop, or they don't have to run the Real Housewives of Atlanta and get the tea. They come right to their daddy and get it from the source on what's what.
Nice. Well, I would just say, add to that, initiating conversation. I think my ex-husband does that very well with our son, even early on. So it's something that has always been since my son knew how to talk, right? So I remember he would say, like, he would ask him, what's going on? And my son would say, good. And he's like, good? That's not a proper response to the question that I asked. And so he'll give him examples of how basically to communicate what's going on, how he's feeling, right? If he just wanted to brush him off and just say good. So I think being able to initiate that is important as well. So he already knows, right, that he can come to him and talk to him about any everything, even things that I don't even know about him, right? Because they have their own relationship. And so I think when you start that young and you initiate different types of conversation, things that they're interested in and things that they're not, then it allows for it to just be the norm. Like, it's not, that's the expectation, that's the standard. It's nothing less than that, right?
Really, you were like right down my lane the entire time. I'm an educator, and I worked in middle schools, and I was the room where the tea was poured daily. And so one boys, girls, it didn't matter. I knew who was doing what, when it happened, all of that. I got all the tea. And one reason that happened is because I built trust with those students. And so I think the same thing is needed for our children. So if their dad's out there listening, your kids have to trust you. How do you build trust? You build trust with getting to know their likes, their dislikes, their interests, spending time with them. So practical ways that a dad could, open lines of communication with their children. Bring back family dinners. Do you all sit down together in the evenings and talk? Turn the TVs off, put your phones away. Those are simple ways that a dad can build trust with their kids. Really, you also pinpointed taking your children out. Take your kids out. It doesn't have to be just your girls. You can take your boys out. What does he like? Does he like football games? Take him to a game. Does he like baseball? Does he like cars? Take him on test drives. I mean, there are inexpensive, cheap things. Go to the park, throw some balls with your kids, take your girl. We ain't got to buy you, all kinds of things, but just spending time with your kids helps to build trust, and your children will open up to you when you are ready to talk to them. They would have no problems coming to you because they know that you have their best interest in mind and that they can trust anything that comes. Don't lie. Don't let your kids see that you are a liar. Nobody's going to want to talk to you because they don't feel like they can trust you to give them a right response. So practical ways that dads can build trust: spending time with them, tucking them in at night, kissing them on the forehead. Are you reading to them at night? Those are simple things that dads can do. That's all I got. Mic drop.
I cannot overstate the importance. I'm just telling y'all, for me, I take my seeds to Universal Circus every year. Something we all look forward to as a family. So having that, right? And then not only that, like I said, with my daughter, I'm just saying this for the men. Taking my daughter on a date, hey man, she know what to look for. We go out, we have real conversations. Again, I'm telling y'all, and she's an adult, but it's why she was just like, yeah, does this date include food? Because I was trying to take her to the concert last night. I've introduced her to new music, but guess what? When I moved back to Chicago, she introduced me to some artists I didn't know. Trill, she introduced me to some drill rappers that I wouldn't have known. Like I'm old as dirt. I wouldn't have known. She put me up on game, like, oh, Young Pappy, okay. Go ahead and listen to Young Pappy, and he dope, right? So I say that to say, you're right, Shan. Like just opening up them lines of communication. And I know for men, and you're right, because we tend to focus on how we treat our girls more so than our boys, right? So we might. You're right. My sons, when they was here, I brought them up. When they was here from Atlanta, we went to the White Sox game, right? But I could, to your point, I also probably could have took them to some of the other things like art shows and stuff that I like to do as well, that they probably would have been intrigued with. But, we tend as men, we tend to save that for our girls, take them to the art shows and the concerts and so on and so forth. So, you're right. You're right.
Anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll chime in on it. So I think for me, going through these classes at church for marriage with my wife. It's interesting because it talks about transparency. Transparency leads to trust, and I look at the same approach as with my children, because they see your actions, they see what you do, and they learn from you. And as for the don't lie, it's hard to tell them not to lie when you're just sitting there lying out your teeth, right? And it's like that then leads to a breakdown of communication, because it's like that's for that double standard. So as for with me, I've realized to be vulnerable with my kids, um, in the sense, like, as for I could care less if they see me cry, because there's been instances. My son has shocked me, and he's 3 years old. Actually, he just turned 4, and he'll be like, Dad, and random situation, random, Dad, I remember that one time you cried because your friend died, and it's just like, and it would be like weeks, and several times he brought that up, and the impact of that, him seeing me in a situation like that, it's like, yeah, and he's trying to use that to relate with him, because I'll be like, hey son, you can't just cry about this, that, and the other, but he knows crying is a part of it, and I don't desire to take that from him, but I also then want to be able to rein that in. As for that open level of communication with my daughter, she would come up with situations like, Dad, and she's 5, about to be 6. She said, Dad, why are you so hard on us? I said, you know what, sweet, that's a great question. He said, I want to challenge you. I desire you to be the best that you can be. And I know that this world is going to be much harder than I am to you. So in that, it's like, being vulnerable in being able to receive questions like that, because that's an interesting question. Like, I absolutely love when my kids are able to come to me with those questions, and I feel like I can then speak into their lives in those opportunities that they do present to me, because some people might get offended by it, some people might take it the wrong way, but I love when my kids are able to then ask me those tough questions, because that, to me, once they're asking questions, it's a desire to learn, and a desire for knowledge in that regard. And I take it as an honor to be able to then answer them with grace and with mercy, and with the experience that I've developed so far. So that's for open a line of communication. For me, it's about being vulnerable, even with my kids. If I make a mistake, I'll be the first one to be like, "Ooh, it was me." And there's been tons of times where I made a mistake with them, tons of times, and I'm willing to go to them and be like, "Hey, Daddy messed up. Daddy messed up," and I'm thoroughly okay with that, because then they can see, based on my actions, how they can proceed.
That's good, man. I had a question, as far as, like, I had 2 questions. I had one question and a statement. Real, I'm asking, like, what's the amount of time that you would say would be designated to have that daddy-daughter time date, or even go out on, a date with your son, right? That's one. And then to the point of what Dwayne was saying, my kids communicate with me on a regular basis, because I talk to them, like, every day about what it is, how they feel, where they at. For me, I ask them what's their score, what's their emotional score, or what is it, and then they have to tell me why is that their score, right? To get a context of why they would say that they're a 5 or a 6, and there have been days that they've told me that there was a 4, right? And then my 4-year-old now is saying, Daddy, what about me? You didn't ask me my score, right? And then she'll even sometimes start the conversation of, Daddy, what's your score? Or, Gianna, what's your score, right? To get an idea of where that person is feeling. All right. And then another thing was, one of the most profound questions that I've had recently was from Joshua. And he asked me, Dad, have you ever had any regrets? And if so, what was your biggest regrets? He's 11. That was his question. Right. And I said, well, some I can't talk to you about just yet. Right. But I'll share with you some that have kind of affected me in a way that I'm trying to help you all not make those or have similar mistakes. Right? So I'll go back to the question with Real or anybody else that could, kind of chime in on this, and then we'll get to the main question. When is it? How much time, or what is the amount of time that you would say, or how many times in a month would you say would be good to have a date with your sons or your daughters? That's for anybody.
I would say really, Humble Dad, you really have to focus on, number one, love languages. I'm just going to throw that out there. For some of your kids, their love language is going to be quality time, whereas others don't need that. Words of affirmation may be good for them to just that's how they receive love from you. So you can still take them out, but it's not necessary that they have that. And then you also have to look at the ages of your children as well. So children who are a little bit older, when we get into teens, yes, your kids want to spend time with you. They themselves may want to spend less time with you. I think it's even more important at that point that you make more of an effort to spend time with them, because they kind of get sucked in and drawn into their own individual worlds. Yes, baby girl, small children find pockets of experiences with you because they don't, you telling them I don't have time for this right now, they don't listen to that. It goes over their head like, oh, okay, yeah, you say you were cooking, but you're gonna give me this hug. I'm gonna sit on your lap. Like, I'm gonna continue to bother you until you give me my time. So you have to be more intentional with your older children and make a little bit more effort, but also understanding what they need is also going to be important, and how often you want to do that, the frequency of it. But that's just my opinion.
I can relate to that to a certain degree. I don't have any teenagers yet. However, but with my first grader, he loves to talk, right? And that requires me to just not be physically present, but to be mentally present. And I'm the kind of individual to where I'm always thinking about something, right? And it requires you to be conscious of that and kind of pause your own thoughts and really be there and in tune to what they're saying. Listen and be able to, actively listen and respond. And so one of the things that I do in the morning, we have a routine. I take them to school in the morning. We have a routine thing. It's about a 15-minute drive. And in the morning, oftentimes I'm thinking about how I'm going to attack the day, right? But I'm conscientious about, okay, we have this 15 minutes. Shut that off. And let's just talk while it's just the two of us in this car together right now. You know what I mean? What's going on in his world, right? How is school going to begin with? Is there something that I can give him advice on before he goes in the building today? You know what I mean? And so just like remembering that I need to do that. Or if I'm in my office and I'm working and he comes in, hey, Dad, what you working on? Instead of brushing him out, I can pause for a minute. I can actually talk to him about what I'm working on. He came in here to talk to me. It's not just, what are you doing? Not just to bother me. He wants a few minutes of my attention. So what's really more important than that? Let me stop what I'm doing, check out of that for a minute, and just be mentally available right now. And I think that's what means a lot to him. Of course, he loves when I take him out and do things together and then go play in the park and all of that. But just those opportunities to just be mentally present. And I think that opens a door for a lot of the things that were mentioned in this conversation right now.
I agree, Rio, because I hear my son when he's with his father. Now, my ex-husband will take Vinny on dates. Like, they're always at the museum, at the beach. They're always somewhere. And so sometimes my son is like, if I go to one more museum, like, I'm tired of going to the museum. Like, I done been to the nature museum every summer, every week, like he got the free passes. So I think it's just more important that you're touching them when you're touching them and understanding that. Like, I agree 100% with what you said versus the frequency.
Yeah, I think you got to
Right, and I would have.
Oh no, go ahead, Shante. I'll go after you.
Okay, no, I would just have to say, and it all to me, it all boils down to, what are your kids interested in? Like Shay was saying, if you went to the museum 50,000 times, are you going to be interested 50,001? Probably not, right? But if you know for sure that your child is interested in one particular thing, hey, if that's what it's going to take for you to have a conversation with them and for you to be engaged with them, hey, go for it. We are a big sports family here. And my husband nor my son are very, I would have to say, emotionally intelligent individuals, but they have this love language for sports. And it blows my mind because I can ask my son if he wants to go play basketball. He's like, no, mommy, I don't want to go with you. I want to go with daddy. Okay, that's fine. But guess what? Like you said, that's that quality time that they spend with their sons or with their children.
Yeah, I agree. I would just, man, just lean into creating traditions, period. I think just regardless of what that is, man. And you know, you think back to when you was a kid, there's certain things that y'all used to do. Like, for instance, my dad used to like to go fishing every Saturday morning or every morning on the weekends, whenever he could. Like, and back then, you know, I ain't know nothing about no fishing. It's hot out there. We in Port Arthur, Texas. It's humid. There's mosquitoes. It's like, man, I don't feel like being out here, man. But then you get older, and then you find yourself like thinking back to the memories, and those be the most fondest memories that you had. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the Jordan 11s that he bought me or them, you know, bread 12s, whatever the case may be. It was damn like I remember, man, we used to go fishing. He took me on the boat and we, you know, caught our first fish. I mean, when I caught my first one, he was so happy and this, that, and the third. Like, those the thoughts that like mean the most to you. You know what I'm saying? So I would just say, just focus on creating traditions, period, regardless of what it is. You know, really take his daughter on dates, take him to concerts. You know, somebody else may, you know, watch TV shows with their kid. You know, a lot of it's real easy to put on all those little TV shows that they watch and just leave them in there and go about doing what it is that we do. But sometimes take that time to you know, sit her down and ask her about Baby Shark and like, why does she like this so much, or you know, all those other ones that kids watch, but just be actively involved and like, you know, be inquisitive. Ask her like, what did you learn from that? Like, what's your favorite character? Like, all of those things, and then you'll see their face just light up like, oh, well, my daddy actually interested in that. And they'll get to rambling. You know what I'm saying? A lot of some of it be incoherent or whatever, but you'll see that effort there. Like, damn, like he really interested. And that's what means the most. You know what I'm saying? So whether it's scheduling time to watch TV shows or, you know, just like Rio said, I think that is pivotal in terms of that ride to school. Cause that's pivotal times right there. Cause my moms used to have talks with me a lot of times when she would take us to school. And I remember them talks to this day. You know what I'm saying? Just little gems, just little stuff that you would drop. So, you know, again, I wouldn't, you know, designate anything specific. You know, I think y'all touched on in terms of like what your kid value, but just create some type of traditions, whatever it is, and lean into that. Even when they get old and they get to be a bit annoying, because when they get grown, those are the memories that they're gonna have. When you no longer on this earth, which you will not be one day, that's what they're gonna think too. It ain't gonna be what you bought them. It ain't gonna be the money you spent. It's gonna be those memories on that fishing boat where the mosquitoes was tearing my ass up. But just looking at my daddy, he was at peace and he was smiling, he was laughing, and we just had so much fun. And I felt like I was, you know, grown. You know what I'm saying? I was a kid, but I felt like I was a, you know, grown man. This is my rite of passage. I'm out here with my pops. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
You know, the funny thing, Trill, I introduced my daughter, and some of y'all won't know this. Maybe they may know in the chat, but I introduced my daughter to Smino. That was one of the first concerts we went to. Smino, super dope artist. But she introduced me to Young Pappy. When I listened to Young Pappy, I didn't hear like the vulgarity or the like all the stuff he was talking about in lyrics. I was like, this was a really, and he died early, but it was a really talented young dude, right? But to your question, Humble Dad, how much time? I focus on creating the memory. How long it takes to create the memory. Because what you heard Trill talk about, he couldn't even tell you how long he was out there on that doggone lake getting towed up by mosquitoes. What he can tell you is the elation that he saw in his dad's face and how he felt being accepted, validated, grown, being there with his dad. And so I don't focus on, you know, how much time. Now, the frequency of when we take our dates or whatever, like for me, I try and do it with her, you know, once a month. It don't always work out that way. In which case, I always make up for it by bringing some donuts to the house or whatever for her. She be all right with that. She cool with that, right? But Dwayne said something that I thought was really, really dope. I thought he was going to deep dive into it. he actually started to tiptoe in on apologizing to your kids. I thought he was about to go in. Because when he was talking about it, you was alluding to it, bro. And I was like, that I could listen, man. I often apologize to my kids, right? But and I typed it in the back channel, but I was because that's when I said stay in the child's place. The era that I grew up in, it was child is to be seen, not heard. Stay in the child's place, know your role, right? And it wasn't until I became a parent that I learned to really man, oh, that's how you feel. Man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel that. Let me explain to you why I did that way. Well, let me explain to you, because as adults, I pay the bills around here. I got to explain myself to you, right? And then we forget that they little people who are going to go on to be big people, contributing to this thing we call society. And so who do we want out here? Replications of the same broken generation. Like, do we want them carrying on this curse generation after generation, or is somebody going to at one point say, and Trill, like, that's why I salute you, young blood, man. You are old soul in a young man's body. So much wisdom in you, man. That's why I salute you every time I get a chance to, and I don't have no problems saluting or giving accolades to a young blood that's standing on their square 10 toes down, because I ain't got no ego and ain't no shame about that. Right? But they need to see that example, is my point. They need to see that example. Our kids need to see us being vulnerable in some spaces, vulnerable, transparent. But as men, we still need to be assertive. We still need to carry the vision, right? We still need to set the tone, give guidance and direction. But I'm here for you. I'm emotionally available for you. I'm here to create memories with you. Because why? What happens when I'm gone? That's all you got left is the memories.
Man, I think, and I know you got to change subjects, Humble Dad, but just
go ahead, bro. I'm just trying to make sure y'all have good, get out of here at a good time. That's all.
But just like what Trill and Rilla is saying, man, I think so much about legacy. And I had a conversation with my son yesterday. Had a lot to do with me allowing him to get to know who I am, aside from what he actually sees on the day-to-day. And because I thought about it, I said, whenever it's my time, I want my son to be able to get up there, and when it's time to speak, be able to communicate better than anybody who his father was. Not from what he was told by someone else, but from what he experienced and from what he heard from me. You know what I mean? And so even though he's only been around a short 6 years, going on 7 years, started to talk to him about even before you come along. And so I decided, okay, well, I can share different chapters in his life so that he can kind of understand from my perspective. And yesterday came up about the nursery. I said, listen, because this was my first, I got 2 kids, but this was my firstborn. I said, before you even came along, I said, we've been very intentional about how your life is to play out. We had a plan. And I said down to the very minute details, and I told him, I said, listen, when your mother was pregnant, I said, just something as simple as your nursery. I said, I went to the Home Depot. I was very intentional about the colors that I picked that I would paint your walls with. You know what I mean? I was very intentional about the die-cast cars that I would buy for you to have collectibles and hang up on your walls. You know what I mean? I remember putting together your crib, your toy box, everything that we could think of to do in preparation for you being here. And now that you're here, we still do that down to the school that you go to every day. You know what I mean? And so I want to make sure that he knows that his life is a product. What he experiences every day is a product of our planning and preparation. And that when I leave this house every day, it's not just to be away, but it's so that I can work hard to make that plan come into fruition. You know what I mean? And so that's the understanding that I want him to have. Not that I just leave out of here all the time. You know what I mean? But it's for purpose so that you can have. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I just want to share on that.
Hey, real quick, Humble Dad, I'm sorry. Just can
No,
I get
you're
30
not sorry, bro. You've been doing this all episode, but
No.
like, how you gonna keep
Listen,
apologizing for something you keep
I
doing?
know. This the thing, though. You know, Tuesday's my favorite day of the week. Monday might be my next favorite day of the week, right?
For sure.
Humble Dad, are you familiar with PJ Morton?
Yes.
Yo, listen. Let me, because I'm inspired by what you were saying, Rio. If y'all not, to the audience, if y'all not, and I see Shan, you were saying you familiar with him too, right? I saw PJ Morton here. I've seen PJ Morton. He's my favorite live performer, period. Okay. 1000% PK, Preacher's Kid. There's a video of him, and he talks about his dad all the time. There's a video of him bringing his dad to perform with him in Atlanta. If y'all have not seen that, I'm just going to encourage y'all to watch that, because you see how much Bishop Paul Morton has poured into young PJ Morton, and how PJ, as Paul Morton looks at the sunset, how PJ continues to shower his dad with accolades, love, adoration. Your legacy is safe, sir, here. PJ has not embarrassed that man not one time, not one scandal on his name, none of that church oofy goofiness, right? Even though the church rejected that man when he came out and he was singing about love, did a whole album, Why Can't I Sing About Love? You was created from love. Church rejected that. Y'all don't remember that? He did a whole album, Why Can't I Sing About Love, when you were created from love, right? Because it wasn't church enough. My point being, because when Rio was talking, I was like, man, it just made me think about PJ, and anytime he gets an opportunity to big up his daddy, because you was talking about how you want your son to be able to speak on you. Anytime, man, he brought Bishop Paul Morton on stage. I think he did a show at the Tabernacle in Atlanta, big venue in Atlanta, sold out. Did Everything's Gonna Be All Right. His biggest Bishop Paul Morton biggest song was the song PJ wrote for Dwayne Woods, Let Go, Let God. Let go, soon as I stop worrying how the story ends. That song, right? Anytime that man gets to big up his dad, that's what we talking, legacy. That's what we talking.
That's dope, man. That kind of transitions to what the main topic is. That this guy named, I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Voddie Baucham. He's a big time minister he was in Houston, in Humble, Texas. One of the only few black dudes that ministered and pastor of a white church. Has 2 kids. Well, he has 11, I think. 2 that are him and his wife, and then they adopted 9. And then they went to Africa to set up ministry there and start preaching the gospel there. Well, I bring him up because one of the things that he talked about was that his son, as big as he is, like Voddie Baucham was going to play for the University of Texas. I think he may have been playing there and had aspirations to go into the NFL, but he got called to the ministry. And one of the things that he currently is very, very adamant about is his sons riding with him wherever he goes. He said, I'm not concerned about them playing sports. I'm concerned about them becoming men. Right now, if they decide to play sports, that's fine. But I want to make sure that they are very equipped to be a man. And so he has a particular age in which he decides that the son will be primarily his responsibility. Mom does have some say, but he will be the ultimate and most, everything goes through him. And so my question that goes through for the night is, when is that age of when the son should go with their father and be primarily with the father? We'll start with anyone.
I don't know when, but my son will go with his father in 9th grade. So that's just something that we've agreed on as parents, that's what's going to happen when he starts high school. So
I'm actually really interested in hearing the male perspective on this. I was recently talking to some friends. My son is the youngest. He just turned 9 on the 1st, and my youngest daughter is 2 years older than him. And so I told some friends of mine that once all the girls graduate, like, you got to go. There's no point in you staying here. It don't need to be just me and you sitting in a house together. I don't care if you're kicking and screaming, like, you have to go at that point. But he'll be like a 10th grader, 11th grader. So should I kick him out sooner than, I know that sounds so bad, but that is the reality. I don't need to it don't need to be me and him sitting in the house together when he has a father that can give him whatever tools and skills he needs to further him into adulthood. So I'm highly interested in hearing the male perspective on this.
Yeah, I would probably say whenever he's aware of his perception, I think it's about that time. Because, like, kids, which is probably the most beautiful thing about them, right, is that they are ignorant. They go about life. I'm talking about young kids. They ignorant. They go about life. They just do whatever they want to do. Like my daughter, we'll go to the grocery store. She'll throw on 2 shoes that don't match, a t-shirt with the pajama pants. When I tell her to go grab some clothes, that's what she come back with. Rain boots, had all type of shit, right? Just no perception of how people perceive her on the outside in. But I think, once you start getting an understanding of what that is, then that kid is gonna need his dad around to kind of guide him and crafting that. I don't want to say image, but crafting that, like, perception of you, because those type of things are important when you are in school. Like how you carry yourself, like the like type of man you are, all of that stuff factors into your ability to survive in that aspect, and not only survive but like thrive. Like the last thing you want is your kid going to school and being aloof of everything that's going on. But you don't want them too caught up in what's cool or what's popular, whatever the case may be. But you want them to be cognizant of that, and you want them to kind of carefully craft who they're going to be in that sense, because it makes a difference. I've seen kids, who you could just tell were just sheltered their whole life, right? And then they get in public school and realize it's a doghouse in there, bro. Like I remember going to school and breakfast every morning. It was roasting sessions every morning. So, those are type of things that most women are not going to teach their kids: how to roast somebody, how to cap on somebody, or how you should, fight, or whatever the case may be. Hey, if, like in bully type situations, like, a lot of mothers going to be, well, okay, well, just go tell somebody. Whereas the dad going to say, nah, you punch him in the face first. Get off, make sure that you set an example, right? This is why you do this, because you're not beating him up for him. You beating him up for everybody that's watching. So that the rest of your scholastic career is going to go way more smoother when people know that you're not to be played with in that aspect. Right now, that's tool is that a man is going to be way more, assertive in terms of giving a kid that type of intel and that type of background. Because again, like I said, perception matters. You don't want to be looked at as no pushover in school. You don't want to be looked at as no sucker in school. That's not saying you want to be seen as a thug or bully or nothing like that. But again, when kids look at you, they got to know that you're not to be played with, or you're going to have a rough time. And that rough time could have long-term psychological effects on you if you don't address that right on the spot. You know what I'm saying? So again, I think like whenever a kid starts to become, aware of what their common perception is, especially a young boy, that's when the dad needs to be way more hands-on, because you got to craft it. You got to like make sure that your kid is able to not only survive in school, but thrive in there. And a lot of like, toxic masculinity traits that a lot of women don't want to instill into their kids, the dad has to, because he knows what the consequences of not doing that is.
Right. And see, that's kind of hard for me because I work at the same school that my 13-year-old attends. So it's hard for me to kind of, differentiate between, hey, if somebody messes you, you go do something back. When, of course, all his school years, he's been taught somebody does something to you, you need to, defend yourself or go tell somebody. But he'll come home and tell my husband, and my husband like, well, why didn't you do anything to them? Well, I can't do that, in the educational environment that we work in. So that's where I think we kind of have to, draw the lines of, yes, I will do what I can, but at home, Dad, you need to, lay down the law when it comes to stuff like that.
Anyone else?
No, I just wanted to say my sister taught my son how to roast, and he is so good at it. He's probably an exception to the rule, but since she taught him, now I try to teach him, you don't roast nobody unless they roasting you, but he just go in and roast.
What? That's not true at all. What?
I don't know. He just be going like
listen. Ask any one of the three. Hey, listen. Ask any one of the three fellas, man. Hey, that's my job.
To roast
listen, I'm roasting everybody on King Talk, bro.
That's him.
And I go first.
Anybody on site,
We want to shut it down before it even starts. No, don't even turn on this street. Like, please, no.
Yeah,
Everybody's
like,
I can say that here at home, but I can't say that at school.
Wrong lesson, Shay.
Shay, I gotta see this roasting because I don't know that you can be taught, man. You got to be in it to win it, right?
No,
let me tell you something. When I used to sit with them grown folk, and listen, when I was growing up, I had Coke bottles all my life. Them jokers, professor, right? So you learn, you sit and you watch, then you pay attention. And then when you in school, 7-period lunch, hey man, it's on. It's on like Donkey Kong. It's popping. I don't know nobody can feed me them jokes, man. And I told old boy, hey man, you too big for the world. Hey man, I don't know if anybody can feed me that line. I don't know if anybody.
No, I said she taught him about roasting him, so he learned how to roast her back. He the king at it because I be trying, but that's just not my style. So he be eating me up. I'm like, leave me alone.
Wait, he be roasting you?
He be roasting me. He roasts anybody on site. He roasts his daddy. He roasts me. He roasts his grandma. I said, you cannot roast your grandma, dude. Like, you can't roast your grandma.
Oh no, he getting taste slapped out his mouth.
Hey, everybody. What's the topic? When should the sons go with their dad? I'm trying to get y'all out of here. Y'all having a lot of fun.
You gotta put this in a perspective for me, HD. Is it like the parents are separated?
Yeah, it sounds like that.
It's either way because Voddie Baucham, he's married, and he has said that his son is going to always be with him. He's going to go wherever he goes. He's going to make sure that he instills in him the values that he wants for him to have. Not saying that the mother can't say anything to him, but he is I guess if you look at that tribally, like the son would go out with the dad when they went to go hunt. He didn't stay back and be with his mom. When he reached a certain age, he was always with his father. So that's what I'm asking. Well, it can go for, if the parents are not together. That's a very good point as well. That's what Shay was saying, that her son is going to go in the 9th grade. Shan was like, listen, hey, if the girls are gone, you gone. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to get with your dad. And those are two women that are not with the father of their kids.
I see value in children having balance, even if the parents are no longer together. As a father, I can tell you if things weren't to work out, I would need to have my children equally. I would never allow them to feel as if I was okay with them not having access to me or me not having access to them in an equal capacity. I would feel as though I would be leaving them in some way or abandoning them in some way, and that would eat me alive. You know what I mean? So I would need that, so to speak. And that's why I think it's very difficult if people who aren't together can't have an amicable relationship for the sake of the children. Because if you love the children enough, you'll realize that you've signed up for this partnership, whether or not you are together or not, because your children need you to do that. They need you to be that. They need you to work together for the betterment of them. They need their parents. It required two people to bring them into the world. So how is one ever less valuable?
I don't know if it's a matter of less valuable. In my situation, most standard visitation, whatever it is, in court ruled divorces or breakups or separations, the mother has a primary custody. That's just the reality of the situation. Not saying that there are dads out there that don't exist that have their children 100% of the time. But I would switch my role with my ex-husband. So I get him for visitation on weekends, so he still has that time. But the majority of the time, I feel like at some point my son will need to be with his father, because there are things that I cannot teach you about being a man. I only know how to be a woman. I have no interest in trying to be a man. I have no interest in trying to understand the lessons that he needs to learn about being. I can show you how to change the tire if we want to assign male and female roles to things. I can show you how to check the oil, in the car. My dad showed me those things because he didn't want me to be stuck out. But for other lessons, he needs to be with his father at some point. My son now, I don't touch doors. We're working on, I should not ever have to touch a door when you are present. But those are things that I can show him from a female perspective. What is it that his father needs to put in him that he cannot do when he is with all his sisters on weekend visits? He needs that time with him. That's just how I feel. Eventually, I would like it to be.
And to chime in on that, I know we discussed this last week too, I'm going to speak specifically on my situation as well. We have a great relationship. Me and my ex-husband, we have a wonderful relationship. We're great at co-parenting. We figured this thing out, right? So we do what we can to manage the long distance. He's talking to our son 3 times a day when he's in my care, and I'll call him once or twice a day when he's in his care, whatever. But we have that level of understanding. He's invited in all the school conversations. So it is seriously a partnership, right? But we do, like Shanteri mentioned, that there will come a point in time when Vinny will be primarily in his father's care, and the roles will essentially reverse. So it doesn't take away from what's going on a daily basis, right? Because the communication is still there. It's very fluid. He's very impactful in all areas of his life, whether Vinny is with me or with his father. But I do think that there comes a point in time when he's hitting puberty, I guess, from my stance, and we both agreed, like, hey, and this is something that we've agreed to for years. So it's not, I've had about 5 years to think about. 9th grade is coming here pretty soon, right? So that's something that we discussed, that it would be a great time for us to make that transition, for Vinny to live with him full time, so he'll be able to, be more hands-on throughout high school. And that's mainly because we're in 2 different states. So we do the best we can now, which is why he is a healthy kid, right? But there will come a point in time when we have to make a decision to have him stay with his dad full time.
So I had a question for Shan. You brought up an important point about the courts, right? And the decisions that they make, and that typically the mother gets, custody, so to speak. We have a decision to make whether or not it requires us to go to the courts. There are special circumstances where you don't live in proximity, but however, if you live 20 minutes away from me, what is the reason and what's the rationale why a father would be able to say, I just see you on the weekends, opposed to you have 2 places where you live? You know what I mean? Why, I guess. And that's something that I've never been able to quite understand. It was a portion of my life where I personally experienced that growing up. You know what I mean? But there really wasn't any legitimate reason per se that as an adult for me to analyze as to why. You have equal responsibility you can be there just as much as she's there. If you choose, if you decide that this is what I require as their father, you know what I mean? And you're the mother and you realize that we're raising these children together, whether or not we're together or not. And so
I agree with that.
but
If you're local, then it should be a daily thing. And I always ask my ex-husband, move to Texas, please, because he would see him every day and I would see him every day. Like, I know without a shadow of a doubt that we would both see our son every day. That's just how it is, how it would be if we were in the same state or the same city, I would say.
I think what Rio is asking about though is like, because I wanted to clarify, if you're not married, then that question is valid. But if you're married and getting a divorce, the courts are going to be involved. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be default woman and child in most states, period. Mm-hmm. Like there's no, like my divorce happened in Georgia. And it took some years before I was able to talk to somebody to give me an honest answer and say, yeah, Georgia is a woman and child state. Everything's going to default to her automatically, period. Ain't no 50-50, ain't no, we literally sitting there with a mediator and the mediator is saying, I'm pushing for 50-50 joint custody. No, somebody has to make the decision. Well, why would that default to the woman and not the man?
Mm-hmm. Well, it can in a divorce decree. You can make that decision to say equal.
Yeah, I'm saying the mediator who's mm-hmm. supposed to be arbitrary, advocating for the best interest of the child.
Well, I think two parents should advocate for what's in the best interest of the child.
I agree with you.
And I know that's not always the case, but we should be mature adults when we're talking about our children. Like, it's whatever is in the best interest of the child, period.
And Shay, would you say your situation is the rule or an anomaly? You have a good relationship with the father of your child. A very good relationship from what
But it wasn't always that way. I think as adults, we just said we would do what's in the best interest of our child. And that was what we came up with.
And what I'm saying is, I think what family court does mm-hmm. Is if the family court has to make a decision for you, it's not going to be comfortable.
Right.
And there are a lot of overaged or adult kids going through family court, like two parents, husband and wife, going through adult court, and it ends up being that the family court has to make a decision. And most of the time, it's not to advocate for the kids as much as it is to punish. Y'all can disagree with me, but it is to punish the man. It is. Yeah. Because if it was to advocate for the kid, everything would be split. Okay, you get them 50% of the time, you get them 50% of the time. You split the bill, and y'all going about your way, have a nice day. But what ends up happening is, no, father's going to incur most of the costs. Not only do I have to pay the court costs for having to go to court, right? Now I have to also pay the child support, and I ain't one of them bitter baby daddies and none of that. Like I'm cool. I'm just saying this is what it is, right? And so what I'm saying for you, Shay, is your situation is the anomaly. And what I wanted to key in on with what Rio was asking was, are you saying for like divorce situations, or are you saying like boyfriend girlfriend situations? Because to me that's different. Because even in a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, now that father, well, I know at least in Georgia, you have to go get legitimated, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have to be legitimated to be like, you could be the biological father of that child, but you still have to go through a process legally to say you are the biological father of that child. And then there's a different process when you in family court dealing with that. So I'm just trying to get clarification on your question, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say my situation, my mom and dad, they divorced whenever I was 8. So lived with my mom most of my life. And then 8th grade year, my dad was in California. Moved to California half my 7th grade year. And then I moved up there to California again my freshman and sophomore year. And I would say that was very, very, very beneficial for me because my mom tried and all, but there was something about being able to live with my dad that was a great experience. I mean, I'll say even to this day, like cutting the grass, right? Um, I had to go out there and I had to cut the grass. So now that I have my own, that ain't no problem, to go out there and cut the grass. And I find it fortunate for being able to have those experiences. I got to ride dirt bikes. That was an awesome experience. There are certain things that my mom just wasn't in the situation. I mean, we lived in apartments whenever I was living with her. So that mowing the grass wasn't an applicable situation for me. So having the opportunity to live with my dad and hey, you got to go out there. Hey, you know what time it is. You got to go cut that grass. I find stuff like that to be beneficial. I have friends where that's something they struggle with. I just have to see as for having that experience. But then as with my sons, I would say he tends to gravitate more towards his mom. Granted, he's 4, but he gravitates more towards his mom. But then there's times where it's like, hey, you gotta take him, and I'm like, gladly. And it's like having those opportunities. As a matter of fact, today we just got back from vacation, and I had the opportunity to walk by the lake with him. Hey, we went, and him and his sister and his younger brother, they went on about their way, and I got to go exploring, with them, and that was little opportunity to get a little insight of him. I mean, I'll say, granted, 30 minutes later, when he realized that we went this way and his mom went this way, he was like, "Hey, where's mom? My feet hurt," But just that little dose of alone time that I got to spend with him. And the older he gets, there will be more of those. But right now, that he's young, I see him tend to gravitate towards his mom. As for me, based on the experience, I cherish and I appreciate those opportunities that I did have living with my dad when I did. As a matter of fact, my last days living with him in California was my last whooping. And that last whooping. So I remember it was 17 or so, 16 and 17, last whooping. And I stood there as a man trying to toughen up as he was, and I deserved it. Oh boy, I deserved it because I thought I was a man or all tough. No, he was like, "Yeah, all right, come here, I got you." So even as for that little experience where it's like, "Hey, you think you're growing into a man? You're still in my house, and you're still gonna have to have that line of the respect. No matter how much you think they're dropping, you better pick them up when you're around me." So that as for that man connection, it's like, yeah, you're gonna learn today. And I appreciate that. I cherish that.
That's what's up, man. Does anybody have any last words before we be getting out of here? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, I want to say thank you to the panel. Y'all have been incredible. I'm glad I ain't have to talk much. You know what I'm saying? Really did that for us. And thank you for contributing to the conversation. Trill AC, you my guy. Rilla for sure. Dwayne, King Rio, Shanteri, Miss Shantae. So glad to meet you. Glad you could come on short notice. And Miss Shay, y'all have been pretty wonderful. And hopefully see you another time at some point in time. And for all those out there paying attention, make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Check out these wonderful people out. I think Trill, I know where he's at. Go to Cruise Season. Find him out there. He just hit 100,000 subscribers over there. You know what I'm saying? He's on to like 106,000 now, though. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Trill for that. Chicago Rilla, where they going to find you on Instagram and then Facebook Live sometimes.
Yeah, you're going to find me over here tapped in, hitting the like button multiple times on Humble Dad channel. And then after I'm done hitting the like button on Humble Dad channel, I'm going over there to Cruise Season. And I'm hitting the like button, and I'm encouraging y'all to go over there and subscribe. Humble Dad, real quick. I saw Trill in Houston. I mean, not Houston, in Atlanta. I said, yo, congrats on the congrats on the 70,000. Nah, bro, we at 80,000. We up.
Yeah. He got to that 100.
Yeah, we up. Shout out to all the light skinned in this.
For sure. Hey, find King Rio on Instagram. As you can see at Brown Photography, right? Shout out to my dude. Shanteri, they can find you. Oh, yeah. You on IG too, right? But it's a different name though, right?
Renewed Lens. Renewed Lens.
Listen, she be over there dancing and having TikTok videos with her kids, like
That's
all
how
the
we
time.
build trust.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a bet. Dwayne, he don't really like social media, even though he into the tech. But they can find you on Facebook, right?
Unfortunately, no, not on the Facebook no more.
Okay, then what can they find you at, bro? They may have a question for your wisdom.
You know what? It's just been a pleasure knowing you. So I get
He ain't gonna tell you.
Dr. Glenn.
Hey, Dr. Glenn, I like that. Hey, Shay, where they find you is that Instagram right there?
Now I don't know how to unmute. Both Instagram and Facebook, Shay McNuckles.
That's a bet. And she's into taxes and what else you got going?
Tax accounting, income tax training, and tax debt resolution. If you owe the IRS, we negotiate on your behalf.
That's a bet. And Shantae, tell us a little bit about, I think you said you was a middle school teacher, but what can they find you? They want to chop it up with you.
I'm kind of like Dwayne. I'm not a social media person, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Humble Dad. He knows how to get in touch with me. But it's been a pleasure being on this panel. This is my first one as well, so it's been a pleasure.
Well, that's what's up. Hey, I appreciate you all. I don't got no theme music and nothing like that. We just gonna ride off into the sunset, and I'll see y'all next time. We out here. Until next time. Deuces.
HD.